So, welcome back to Passage to Profit. We have a very special guest who's actually returning to Passage to Profit today, Victoria Wieck. So, Victoria is a world-renowned jewelry designer. She's an author, she's a podcaster, host of the $1 Million Hobbies, and she's also built a $500 million business from scratch. So, Victoria, welcome back to Passage to Profit.
Thank you. So good to be back.
And I think I did you not due diligence in the intro. I think you said you built a $500,000 business. So I just want to make sure we correct that in that it's actually a $500 million business from scratch. So I want to make sure we put that out there correctly.
It's only a digit difference, 8 figures versus 9 figures. Such a big deal.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Well, thank you. It doesn't, I don't actually even think about the money really, because when I started, my goal was to, remember I started with no money. I didn't have money to even make a single sample. So basically my goal was to be able to make $2,000 a month, but my dream scenario would have been $3,000 a month. So I didn't even dream about ever owning a home or, buying a new car. I just wanted to just feed my kids and pay my own apartment and pay my car insurance. Maybe hopefully have a little bit of money saved up for, their future. And all I really wanted to do is spend time with them instead of having the nannies, do all that work. So, I kind of overachieved it over those years. And so, I don't actually really think about the money that much.
Well, Victoria, we haven't introduced what kind of business you have, but I think it's amazing that you did this with jewelry, because you think of the jewelry business as a very crowded field. Oh, and to be able to go to from zero to $500 million with a jewelry business is amazing. So I don't know, what are your top tips for entrepreneurs trying to do something like that?
Well, do everything with intention and do everything with, give it your heart. And you got to really love your customers. You've got to love their problems, because when you actually, really get to know them, their issues, and you solve their problems, they're going to keep talking about you. They'll fall in love with you. They're going to be so emotionally connected with you that they bring in new customers all the time for you. And I think that is, a lot of entrepreneurs, when you chase the money will never come, because you're in there for all the wrong reasons.
That's a good point, because you're saying you don't focus on the money so much. But I guess it's kind of, is it not hard to not focus on the money? Because I feel like that's a lot of money to not focus on. So what do you have to have a certain kind of mindset in terms of attracting that kind of money into your atmosphere? What would you suggest someone does? Say they only have $1,000 in their bank account to start a business. What's some mindset you need to have in order to kind of grow yourself to believe that you can achieve this multi-million-dollar empire?
Yeah, first of all, $1,000 is more than what I had to start my business, so that's the good news. But if you really believe that you have something special, if you really, and you got to believe that, because no one else will. As you know this, no one else will. So you got to believe in, your ability to solve their problem, one person at a time. And when you do that, all these obstacles that are in front of you, like no money, no connections, no experience, all of that goes out the window, because you are going to be creating a whole new way of solving problems for them. So for example, in my jewelry business, as Elizabeth said, jewelry business, you can go to China, Africa, Kenya, all these places, and you'll find there's a Chinese restaurant and a jewelry store. Okay, everybody's jewelry store is very, very crowded. It's also one that requires a lot of money, because you have to have inventory, you really have to buy in volume, all of that. I didn't have any money. So, I believe that jewelry at that time in 1989 was sold. And you guys all know this. I'm not sure about Pilar, but basically most of us women know jewelry is sold on status. I bought this 2-carat diamond from Tiffany's or whatever. That was always sold on status. It was really never sold on the emotional connection. So when I came into the business, I believed that there was a place for moderately priced jewelry that will make you feel elegant, sophisticated, understated, and makes you feel like, you're somebody special. And because jewelry is bought and sold to, create milestone moments, think about, weddings, all the, the celebrations. So I created jewelry that will connect you emotionally, that has a feeling to it, that has a look about it. And also a lot of women that went to work in 1989, we were the first generation of women that actually worked outside of in managerial positions. Women before us worked in, as receptionists, Girl Friday. They actually had a title called Girl Friday, believe it or not, so when I created jewelry for that working woman who wanted to feel her femininity and who wanted to express a little bit about herself, there was a market for it. And I believe there was a market for it. I just didn't have a way to express it. So I created a lookbook and, I just pretty much designed them on a piece of paper. I then went to all the department stores, within 20-mile radius. And I asked people, the assistant department managers for jewelry departments usually had I would just tell them, look, I have no experience, I'm a young girl. I have some dreams of starting my own business. I'm kind of like really embarrassed to even show you my designs, but would you just like take a few minutes and, let me know if there's anything in here that your customers might like. And believe it or not, the first one I talked to was Neiman Marcus on Wilshire and Rodale. I mean, the woman was like, oh my God, like this is beautiful. I mean, our customers would love it. And so they ended up selling them for me. Then I just duplicated the process, at like a 30-mile radius all over LA. So I kind of like got paid before I even got my first sample made. So what I'm saying is like, don't give up. When people tell you, you can't, you're not good enough unless you have a unique selling proposition, you're just not going to make it. The idea that a young Asian woman who barely spoke English can actually get there and do something back then, I got laughed at a lot. But you don't give up. You just have to have some grit and move on.
Well, I think you're pretty bold.
I'd say so.
Don't I look like a boxer,
I think that's one of the takeaways for me is you have to be bold. You can't be afraid to walk into that store up to that person or wherever and just say, look, here I am, look at me. And it takes guts. I mean, we're all afraid of rejection, but you just carried on.
I just want to say one thing. Rejection is just feedback. When I wrote my first book, I told everybody English is my second language. So it's probably going to be horrible. Okay. I've never written anything before. It's going to be horrible. Everybody told me your first book sucked and mine probably sucks more than others, but I just would like some feedback. And so when somebody, tells you no, what I say is instead of getting mad or defensive and you leave or you're embarrassed, what I would say is like, you know what? I completely understand why you wouldn't want this, but is there anything you can give me here? Like any feedback would be really appreciated. So that, what would it take for me to come back and present this to you again? And you'd be surprised how many people actually will give you all their opinions. And a lot of times those opinions actually they suck too, but, but they still like feel like they were heard. Because, so, and you keep doing that. And what happens is like, you don't have to sell to everybody you talk to. If you sell like, look, Babe Ruth, I mean, he didn't hit 1,000, right? If you look at, he was like the best, hitter of all time. He didn't hit 500. So if you get 4 out of 10, you're Babe Ruth in retail.
I need to put that in front of me on like a little plaque somewhere because Victoria was saying that rejection is feedback. And I know that you're working on writing a how-to book on the American dream. So I kind of wanted to get your definition of what you think the American dream is or what that looks like.
I was interviewed years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, about that very question. I did a whole collection of jewelry called American Dream. And it kind of like, I expressed my journey with jewelry, like, the heart, expressed like my passion for something. I had like a mother-child jewelry, but I digress on that. But for me, coming from South Korea, where, girls were, given up a lot for adoption, aborted, all this stuff. So my parents came here because they had 4 girls. For me, the American dream was to be able to think one day that, a girl born in South Korea can come to America and even dare to dream about having an American dream, that the thought that if you try hard enough, there is, slim chance, but there's a slim chance that you're going to actually achieve your American dream. So my first book, it oddly enough, talks about defining the dream. Because a lot of times when you ask a bunch of young kids, what's your American dream? They constantly talk about money, fame, and money. That actually is the wrong way to go about doing that. I think if you ask people to envision the life they can realistically live. So for me, my American dream was to be able to be present for my children, because when I came to America, I was like 13 years old. And I never saw my parents. They went to work, 2 jobs each. And I know there are millions of American kids today that have the same problem. Their parents go to work pretty early in the morning and they come home exhausted at 8 o'clock at night or something. My parents didn't come home till like 10. They had a night job where they cleaned offices and all that. So I wanted to be present for my kids. That was my dream life. And that meant that if I'm going to be present for my kids, I can't be working a regular job. So I was willing to work, I was willing to work longer hours, but not when they were at school. And I was willing to live on lower money, like $2,000 a month. I mean, I had an MBA by that point. And most kids, out of MBA school were making like 35, 50 grand a year, just year one. And I was like year 3 at that point. So, but what happened is, and this is the lesson, what happens is if you have those core values, and this is why you started your business. I got up at like 5 o'clock in the morning every morning. So my kids went to school about 7:45 in the morning. So I got up at 5. Between 6 and 7, basically I called on accounts in Europe. I called Harrods London, Gallagher's Lafayette, all, like Marks and Spencer, all those stores, because 6 a.m. California time is like noontime in England. And I did this like, every day. Because again, like today, if you were to sell a car, if you were to sell a collection to somebody, you need about 5 to 25 touch points. You don't ever sell something day one. So I basically had it, like a journey planned out. So I did this. So, lo and behold, I found out that all these European department stores, they love American goods. So I was in Harrods before I opened anything in the US. But believe it or not, when I tell like the buyers at Neiman's and Saks, hey, I'm in Harrods and Gallagher's Lafayette, and they're like, oh my God, come on over. So I go to Neiman's, I open Neiman's, and then I went to Macy's and I said, I'm selling to, Neiman's down the door. And are you interested? Yeah, of course I'm interested. So this went on and on and on. So a lot of people now ask me like, well, what were you doing before? Bless you. What were you doing before you got the HSN? Because people believe that I got a big break by going on HSN. That's not true. Actually, HSN called me after they saw my stuff on the cover of so many magazines all around the world. But I worked around, so I worked like from 6 a.m. to about 7:30. Sometimes my kids they were in preschool, so they were a little late. But I did that, and then when they went to school, like when I dropped them off, about 9 o'clock my time, I would start working New York, which is noon, then, worked all the way down to, California time zone. And I didn't work when I picked them up at 2 o'clock, from 2 to 8 o'clock, I didn't do anything. I didn't answer phones. I didn't ask texts, nothing. But at 8:30, when they were winding down, going to bed, 9 o'clock California time is noon the next day in Japan, Korea, and all those places. So I opened up all the stores out down there as well. So I had a global distribution before. So if you think, carefully about how you want to live your life, it actually, you got a pretty good chance of, because you're so focused on that, you have a real good chance of achieving it.
Well, I just have to ask you, Victoria, that is an amazing story. How many gallons of coffee did you drink?
This morning, like 4.
No, I mean, to do working from 5 a.m. to what?
That's a lot.
I want to talk about what I did in the 30-year career. That could be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a long day.
That is the one, yeah, it is really long. But, I worked since I was 15 years old. When I went to UCLA, I worked 40 hours a week off campus. Most kids go to UCLA for like a 5 to 7 year plan because it's tough to get the classes you want, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty demanding school. And I worked like 30 to 40 hours a week. So I had all my classes Tuesday, Thursday, but I was in school from like 7:30 a.m. till like 8 p.m. And then I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, 10 hours a day. So I had no time to do anything, but that work ethic of, just pretty much just multitasking all the time and zeroing in on what you need to do all the time kind of helped me, when I started working, with clients and so forth. And the thing is, like, when you're working your own hours, they say, I did not invent this, but they say that if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. So it didn't seem like it was hard work at that time.
I really think that was an amazing strategic approach to find a country that wanted American goods, get your foot in the door there, because you're right. People, if you start selling someplace good that other people recognize, then they're going to want to sell your stuff too. So no, you couldn't maybe do that in the States, but like, a lot of people in the US love to buy British stuff.
Yeah.
So it could go the opposite way for people in England, but that's a brilliant strategy.
I wasn't really that brilliant in the beginning. I just wanted to, not that I'm brilliant now, but it was just a survival thing. I was like, I can't work between, 8 o'clock in the morning till whatever. Like I can't have a regular job. I can't do this. So what can I do now? And I coach a lot of people, most of it for free. But what I do is I tell people every day, life sucks. Like sometimes, like this past week, we had a robbery here. Life sucks and things happen to you, but you have to always think, what is the one thing, just the one single thing you could do to help yourself? And if you come up with 10 things, I mean, you might even say, oh, I could go and read a book, or, you may do 10 things, but pick the one thing that's going to have the most immediate impact today. So when I go on, I've been interviewed over 300, times. And when people say to me, your story is so inspiring, you're such a motivating speaker, on and on and on. But I tell people, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be an inspiration. I don't want to be a motivator. I want to be the person that will cause you to take the first action. Every journey starts with every 1,000-mile journey starts with the first step. I want you to take that first step today. It could just be defining your dream. Just think about what you really, really want in life. Especially after COVID, what are your priorities? What will make you happy? And I always tell people, start with this question. If you never have to worry about money ever for the rest of your life, and that was guaranteed to you, what would you do with your time? And that's where you start.
Mm-hmm. You made a really good point. I think COVID forced us all to look at our priorities and really reassess where we are in life. And I love the mentality that you've built for yourself in terms of just going big. It's not and no shade to Walmart, but it's you went to Harrods, right? Like that takes a certain mentality to say, listen, I'm just going to go big or not go at all. And look how that's worked out for you. I just think that's a phenomenal tool to have in your arsenal. And the other thing I wanted to point out about your story is it seems like you're a real master of maximizing time. So I want to talk a little bit about that and how, you help people do that, or maybe a few tips on how people can learn how to do that. Because I think that's very key to getting anything accomplished in life.
Oh my God, Kenya, I think honestly, I don't know what happened to you guys, but I literally had this exact conversation just this week about time management. You have to understand that if you don't make a decision, if you, I had a boss who told me years ago, she's passed on now, but she told me years ago, in the old days, they used to have these printed, before emails, we had these printed dot matrix paperwork that's about this wide. And, there'll be stacks of it at my desk. And if you go on vacation for a week and you come back, they're literally like a whole foot of, this thing. And she would tell me, just throw it out. And just throw it out. Don't even bother reading it, because when you don't answer it for a week, your competitors, your bosses, everybody has taken action on something because they can't, even if it's a small action. So there's nothing for you to make a decision on. So you have to think about two things. Every day we're making decisions, right? Every single day. Entrepreneurs, especially beginner entrepreneurs, are so overwhelmed with so many decisions because, if you're used to taking orders from your boss all your life and you go on your own and you're like, what kind of internet speed do we want to, do I want health insurance for my employees? I mean, all these decisions are so overwhelming. So what happens is they don't make a decision. They think that, they're going to deal with it tomorrow. And then the problem becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. Your employee starts leaving, or they start, develop bad morale. This all happens. But every single day when you look at your decisions, think about it this way. there are only two types of decisions you can make. One is you bet the farm. The decision calls you to basically bet the whole farm. You have to come up with investors, all this stuff. The other type of decisions are decisions that you can make mistakes. It doesn't kill you. Okay, these decisions are, do I make $50 on an order or $100? It's not something that's going to kill you. So when you have your day is stacked with 80% of decisions that are basically common sense decisions, make it that first time you hear it, because what happens is, you'll make some mistakes. You'll have make some bad decisions. And I think I'm such a huge believer of these other people that's lived before me. I think Mark Twain said, you get wiser by making a lot of mistakes, and you make a lot of mistakes by making bad decisions. So basically, make those decisions the best way you can. Because if in the information age, if you give everybody, all of us, a problem right now, and you give them unlimited amount of time, we're going to all make the right decision. Okay. Because we're above average intelligent people. But what happens is you have to make decisions because other people are making decisions every day, your competitors, the environment, everybody is. So you have to make decisions, plucking out the information that you need. And you know what? You're not going to win them all. But, the other lesson, Kenya, is that there are no failures, because if you fail that first time, it's just like an inexpensive lesson. You're going to do it right the next time. So basically, you make a bad decision, it's not a failure. There are no failures. You're just going to, I'm such an optimistic person. I can't think like this was bad and it's going to kill me. So, yeah. So time management, if you do that, and then some decisions, you don't even have to make it. You're like, if scenario A happens or B happens, it doesn't kill me. So just let that one go.
For sure. Well, Victoria Wieck is here giving us the game today on Passage to Profit. We appreciate you. And I just want to pivot back to Elizabeth. Is there anything you want to ask or you wanted to wrap up with?
Well, we're going to have to go to break. Thanks, Kenya. We will be picking Victoria's brain throughout the show. There's a lot there to pick. So we'll be right back. Listeners, you're listening to Passage to Profit on WOR 710, the voice of New York, with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, but our special co-host today, Kenya Gibson, and our wonderful guest, Victoria Wieck.